Yeah.
This is right up his alley.
So the first thing I'm going to show you is kind of rate comparison tool. So because we're measuring energy and because we're trying to make decisions on cost, we need to deeply understand rate plans. And they don't make it easy. The utilities make it very, very difficult. Tariffs are complicated. And so we're always trying to figure out a better way to solve problems. And I'll talk about two examples. One is weather, and the second is a utility rate plan. So utilities have to disclose their rates, but they do it in a way that even rocket scientists have a hard time deciphering, and that's intentional. They want it to be difficult to understand, so you don't see what's being charged for. So what we've done is we've deconstructed the rate plans, and in doing so, we built this rate comparison tool. So you can compare based on your actual usage what you would pay uh, on two different rate plans. And let's say you want to look at something with a demand charge. If you want to compare that to say, hey, if I paid less per kilowatt hour and added demand charge, would I be ahead? And in this case, you would be ahead because we're able to keep your demand below the threshold where they charge for it. So essentially, you'd be getting electricity for $100 less a month if you switch rate plans. So this rate plan optimization is really interesting and of value. Okay.
That basically just cut their bill by a third just by changing their rate plan. It's just amazing.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of so when David first started with our program, his demand was high that actually if he had switched to this rate plan, it would have cost him money. So if I actually if I picked a different customer, you need to see their usage and see that their peak usage is below a certain threshold in order for this to work. And so, like for example, if I did it at my house, it probably wouldn't work. But the tool gives us the insight without ever having to do all the math, right? Because the tool does the math for you. And then it actually shows you a reconstruction of your bill as it would exist in each of these areas, right? So here's how you'd be charged for the energy, and here's how the demand would be charged. But because you have 0 kilowatts of demand during peak time, you get zeros there and you save money, right? So
And you can do this for every utility in the country, right? You have to upload certain ones where you're not active yet, but you have the ability to do that, right?
yeah, so I wasn't going to try and work with every utility to do this, but what I figured out was if the utilities want to be part of the national grid, and they all need to be for backup if they can't produce the power that's needed by their local area, they arbitrage it from the national grid or the regional grid to the national grid. Well, in order to do that, the Department of Energy requires they submit all their tariffs in a standard format, and it's not published anywhere, but we figured it out, and we kind of hacked into that format, and so we know where to get it from, and so we can onboard a utility in about 24 to 48 hours and have all of their rate plans current and future. So the cool part about this is they're all trying to negotiate better tariffs going forward, and we can tell you based on your usage today what's going to happen to your rates and your expenses a year or 2 years from now. Now, we haven't implemented that in this interface, but we can fairly easily, and we think if there's a value for that service, we can easily do it.
Matthew, do you have any questions on that?
Only if I can go work for Ket. This is exciting because I'm the knucklehead who's doing the math. So I do this for customers. I just don't have the automation. So what you're doing here really speaks to me and really how I try and bring value to my clients.
Yeah, it gets really exciting when you start dealing with commercial customers, right?
Right.
So if you look at Moss Melons and Grapes, which has the most predatory demand rate structure out there, um, and you go from them to Tucson Electric, which is the holding company, and you look at small general service time of use. Okay. Um, oh, sorry, that's not the right one. It's medium. Yeah. Okay. So your cost of electricity would go up, your demand charge would go to zero, your service charge would go from 200 to this. So you'd end up saving $1,800 a month, even though if you were to look at the tariff rate, it's like, wait, I'm paying so much more for electricity. But the
Wow.
hidden demand charge is
Mhm.
what's, you know, raping you basically.
Wow.
And this demand charge is in place for 11 months from the peak, right?
Right. Right.
So whenever they try to thwart solar, they do things that if we understand them, we can offer them a solution that's better, right? So because of their active focus in this utility to prevent solar on rooftops, what it's created is an incredible return on investment for our service. Because if we can control demand with or without solar, we can save the client stupid amounts of money. And it's not even that hard to do, right?
And Jason, it also helps us to get more deals to pencil if we're able to have the foresight to realize that just by shifting to a different service class, it really changes the economics, either pre-installation or post-sale, depending on what's going to be advantageous to the
Hey,
client.
Kenton, show Matt the 1 minute. Like, so Matt and Kenton, I make sure I'm not, like, I guess, positioning this. You're gonna have to train us and make sure we know how to present. But you're getting 1 minute interval data when your nodes are set up. Isn't that correct?
Jason, I got this shit-eating grin on my face because I think you're the first person that ever said, "Show me how the watch is made," and
Yeah.
that's what I love to do. So I'm happy to show this to you. So, um, in order to have demand control, okay, especially in markets like Unisource, where it's 15-minute continuous rolling demand. So every 15 minutes, every minute is a new 15-minute window. Okay, we were pulling data every 5 minutes, and it just wasn't enough, right? So now we're pulling data every minute, and we're able to create really, really actionable insights. So if I go to today um, on Moss Melons, we can see, okay, here's their real-time energy use, okay, and the black and orange line are their demands. So if I turn off the loads and I just show solar in that, so you can see the solar generation in the background. The black line is the demand for the building, and as that generation comes online, you can see the orange and black lines separate, right? So the orange is what they're buying from the grid, okay? And then the gray line is cloud cover within 100 meters of that location. So you can see, actually, I bet you if we go back to yesterday, we had some weather here, you'll see the equation for how to manage demand gets really interesting when you start having weather, and you need kind of near real-time feedback loops. Okay. All right. So this is perfect. Okay. We had late evening showers or early afternoon cloud cover and showers, and you can see the solar production went down. Okay. And the demand from the grid went back up, so they were using as much power as they could. But we saw this coming, and whereas at 2 p.m. they were using 150 kilowatts, we sent alerts to them so they lowered their usage because we saw this cloud cover coming, and they didn't spike their demand.